Our hat on this is exactly the speed. It might arrive a little sooner. So that'll give you an idea. Not far offshore, according to this model, at 3 p.m. And then here it comes quickly up to the coast so that at midnight tomorrow night, this model says hurricane force gusts there possible around Gulfport and Biloxi and strong winds at Mobile. And notice the winds here coming in from the southeast to east. That's going to drive the water up toward Lake Pontchartrain, up into Bay St. Louis, and back up into the Jordan River there. And then as we go on in time, the winds switch around to the south, and that's going to put wind up into Mobile Bay and push the water up that way. The big question is, could the storm get stronger than the models are indicating? Here's one reason that lends credence to yes, it might. We have this big dip in the jet stream out here. It's actually a low, an upper low. It's making a lot of unfavorable winds out there, but it's creating kind of a bubble over the storm. That's quite favorable, so that's on the favorable side. The water ahead of it is very, very warm. That's on the favorable side. So when we look at the model forecast, though, none of them go beyond Category 1. The National Hurricane Center is actually a little above the models. And so the question is, could those favorable things come into play? And the answer is maybe. 41% chance of a significant increase in strength, Chris. This is one of those things where you just have to say, we're going to forecast a Category 1 and be ready for a Category 2, but even though we're still going ahead of the models. Chris?
All right, Brian, thank you so much. And we will be here to walk you through it. We have live team coverage of Nate all weekend long here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 80 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, thunderstorms. A few storms may be severe. Low 58. Chance of rain 80%. Saturday, morning clouds. Saturday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 52. Winds light and variable. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Straight ahead, Tropical Storm Nate making its way to the Gulf Coast this hour after dumping heavy rain and triggering massive flooding in Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua.
Coming up, the spots along the U.S. Gulf Coast that need to be alert heading into the weekend. We're live in places like Biloxi, Mississippi, ahead of the system's anticipated landfall with expert analysis you'll only find right here on the Weather Channel. Hello and welcome to our continuing coverage of Tropical Storm Nate. We are with you 24 hours a day ahead of Nate's expected arrival along the Gulf Coast. I'm meteorologist Julie Martin. And I'm meteorologist Chris Warren. Nate, already a deadly tropical system. Nearly 24 killed in parts of Central America, and now the storm is threatening the United States. With that, let's get right to it, and our senior hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross.
All right, Chris, yet again another hurricane this year. This one is very different, and it's really difficult, I think, to communicate to folks when we've talked about all these Category 4 and 5 hurricanes and the tremendous devastation they cause, to now switch to a Category 1 hurricane and say this storm is dangerous too. It is dangerous too, and it's especially dangerous on the Gulf Coast because the Gulf Coast is so tremendously subject to storm surge flooding, and storm surge kills more people than any other form of weather or effect that comes out of a hurricane. All right, let's take a look at the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. We'll get an update from them here within the hour, but as of the 4 o'clock Central Time, 5 o'clock Eastern Time advisory, 60 miles an hour was the estimate of the peak winds in this circulation. Now, it doesn't have a well-developed center, so it's hard to know exactly where those are. There are 2 planes out there right now investigating to give us the latest information for the next advisory, and it's speeding along to the north-northwest of 21. Because it's moving so quickly, that's going to limit the amount of time to really only a day over the open waters of the Gulf. So that is one reason to think, well, this can't get too terribly strong. On the other hand, there's a long history of storm storm strengthening very, very quickly in the Gulf of Mexico. So we're not going to say absolutely it's not going to get significantly stronger. All right, here you see the satellite picture. It is not a well-developed system, but the difference is that as we get here into the evening, we see more purples closer to the center. If the center of circulation is around in there, and we see a big cluster here, another one up here, and that's often the prelude to them wrapping around the center. Now, will they wrap around the center? We don't forecast that very well, so we're not really sure, but it does look like it's moving in that direction. So tonight is the big question. When you go close up here, we can see with this circulation center, we can kind of make it out. See the turning in it right there? See that turning right in there? You can see that that's going to miss Cancun and Cozumel off to the east. So they're going to know it's out there, but they're not going to get the worst winds with this system. It's going to stay out over the open water, go through the Yucatan Channel there between the Yucatan and Cuba. And then it arrives at the Gulf Coast after midnight is the timetable right now, sometime in the early morning hours of Sunday. And so as a Category 1 hurricane is the forecast with big question marks on the intensity. So the word is to be ready for a Category 2, and that's what they're preparing for along the Gulf Coast. And then it continues because it's moving so quickly, it's not going to spin down quickly, and so it's going to bring the possibility of significant severe weather across the south. And Dr. Greg Forbes has been talking about that the winds aloft just continue with a fast-moving system, so the tornado threat will continue or inland, well inland, through Alabama and maybe into North Georgia as well. The other thing about this system that's different, and there's just a model, European model representation of it from the systems we've seen earlier this year, is it's very lopsided. If the center is there, and it could be there or there or there, but let's say it's right there, the bad weather and the strong winds are on the east side. That's where the storm surge threat is, and that's because it is moving so quickly. And it's moving in the direction of Biloxi, Mississippi. That's a town. Mike Seidel, I was there in 1970 in February, and the damage from Hurricane Camille was still, I mean, that was all you saw. It was damage from US 90. This is a whole different kind of storm, but Biloxi has a lot of experience dealing with hurricanes.
You know, and Brian, there's still places on 90 where you have sidewalks that go nowhere, from homes that were destroyed, wiped away by the surge from Camille, and then we went through the whole process 12 years ago with Katrina. So this area knows what a major hurricane, some of the worst on record on the planet, can do. This is far from that. With that said, we've got a lot of people in town. Reminds me of spring break in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in the 70s, where you could almost walk faster than you could drive up A1A, where the kids don't go there much anymore. But all the car enthusiasts are out here. We had about 180,000 visiting between last Sunday and this Sunday. They're canceling all the events on Sunday, moving them back to today or tomorrow. And with that said, the governor's worried about everybody trying to leave town tomorrow at 1. So they've got extra state troopers on duty and even wreckers, although most of these cars are brought in on trailers, flatbed trucks. They're not driven in. As far as the weather, it goes downhill certainly tomorrow afternoon. The worst of the weather here will be tomorrow night into early Sunday morning, say roughly late evening, 10, 11 o'clock until 6 or 7 in the morning, because by Sunday afternoon, this storm is going to be up in Tennessee or up in that area. We're going to have an offshore wind that'll take care of any surge issues. And very likely the sun will start to break through the overcast here by noon on Sunday. So a quick hitter, but it will drop up to 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. That will be limited by the quick movement.